Welcome to the webinar, Clean Bill of Health, How Effective Cleaning and Maintenance Can Improve Health Outcomes in Your School. My name is Tracy Washington Inger, and I'm with the Indoor Environments Division of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and I will have the pleasure of serving as your facilitator. This webinar is one of a 10-part IAQ Masterclass Professional Training webinar series that is being conducted and hosted by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and a diverse group of school environmental health champions known as the School Health and Indoor Environments Leadership Development Network, or SHIELDS for short. The EPA, in collaboration with the larger SHIELD network, has designed the Indoor Air Quality Masterclass Professional Training webinar series to build the technical capacity school leaders need to start, improve, or sustain an IAQ management program. You will learn from technical experts, industry leaders, and model school districts during these live webinars, which will be followed by 30-minute mentoring question and answer sessions. All webinars and Q&A mentoring sessions will be recorded and available for on-demand viewing on the EPA website. You will also have the opportunity to gain recognition for your knowledge acquisition and commitment to action through certificates of completion for each training. We hope you will join us for all of the webinars in the series, and when you complete all 10 hours, you will be acknowledged with a certificate that recognizes your effort towards IAQ mastery as a member of that year's SHIELD Network IAQ Masterclass. This webinar will focus on the importance of implementing proper cleaning and maintenance practices to improve your school or school district's IAQ management program. The learning objectives you see here reflect the progressive direction that cleaning and maintenance practices have taken in schools over time. Cleaning was once regarded primarily as a matter of aesthetics. Facilities were cleaned for the purposes of creating an appealing appearance or eliminating unpleasant odors and controlling pests. As we've come to better understand the connection between cleaning and hygiene, there is more emphasis on cleaning for the purpose of protecting human health, in addition to protecting and preserving the physical spaces. More recently, there's also been a growing concern for the impact cleaning practices and products have on the natural environment. This has ignited a strong interest in adopting the principles of green cleaning. We have now evolved to a point where these three issues, the preserving of our facilities, protecting human health, and providing stewardship for the environment, are all of equal importance. This webinar explores the critical relationship between these three areas and the importance of policies, practices, and products that ensure cleaning programs are effective while protecting health and the environment. During this webinar, you will learn many strategies that apply to cleaning and maintenance and incorporate safe, clean, and healthy practices into your comprehensive IAQ management program. Before we go any further, I do want to talk a little bit about why it is really so critically important to deal with indoor air quality as a part of your overall comprehensive healthy school environment plan. We know that children spend more time in school than any other place except for their homes. And we know from various studies that indoor air quality problems in our nation's schools are widespread. That's why we here at EPA have been working since the mid-1990s to provide guidance, outreach, and technical support to states and school districts to promote the adoption of indoor air quality management plans to correct and prevent such problems. And we've had a great deal of success with IAQ management programs in place in about half the schools in the country. But now we're really focused on aggressively addressing the other half of schools in the nation who have not yet put a plan in place. We know that good indoor air quality in schools matters. Studies have shown that indoor air quality problems in schools, things that good cleaning and maintenance can address, like mold and moisture issues, irritants, allergens, and toxic pollutants, are associated with respiratory disease, including asthma. And as many of you know, 1 in 10 school-aged children has asthma, and approximately 10.5 million school days are missed each year in the United States due to asthma. The takeaway here is that indoor air quality is not optional for schools. It really is a critical component of the main educational mission that's happening in our schools across the country. Regular and thorough cleaning and maintenance of school facilities should be a given, but during today's webinar, we'll take it one step further to explore how proper techniques and practices can save money and improve occupant health, and how these practices can be best integrated into an overall IAQ management plan. That's one of the important factors that we addressed when we developed the Indoor Air Quality Tools for Schools guidance. This guidance provides schools with a comprehensive set of materials and resources to identify, fix, and prevent problems by developing an effective IAQ management program. The IAQ Tools for Schools program has been implemented successfully in tens of thousands of schools nationwide. I've already highlighted many of the important improved health outcomes and performance outcomes for students and staff, but I'd also like to mention that using this guidance, it can help facilities provide significant cost and time savings for maintenance and custodial services and ensure better performance and durability of all of your systems. Over the years, we at EPA have learned a lot from the thousands of schools who successfully implemented the program. And we've used that knowledge to develop the framework for effective school IAQ management. If the kit tells you what to do, the framework tells you how to do it, using what you see here, these 6 key drivers that deliver continuous improvement. This framework for effective school IAQ management is really a life cycle that provides a common language to describe what drives an indoor air quality program success. During this webinar, I would ask you to listen for how the speakers are using the framework key drivers to develop effective cleaning and maintenance programs that assess areas that need to be cleaned, that help you plan for making your cleaning programs financially sustainable, and that have a strong training component for staff. In addition to the framework, the Action Kit offers 7 technical solutions. These are the major IAQ issues that the Action Kit and framework can be used to address in order to create green, clean, and healthy school environments. The IAQ Masterclass series devotes a separate webinar to each one of these technical solutions. This webinar focuses specifically on the strategies associated with cleaning and maintenance, but none of the solutions operates independently. So pay attention today and listen to hear techniques and strategies for addressing other technical solutions, especially integrated pest management, smart material selection, and source control. The strategies that you see here are intended to promote cleaning and maintenance plans that create optimal school indoor learning environments. During this webinar, you will hear the actions and behaviors that are necessary to achieve and maintain green, clean, and healthy indoor environments for schools. We'll start the webinar today with an exploration of the green component of green, clean, and healthy school indoor environments, which is an area that is constantly under construction. We know that just because a product may be labeled green does not automatically mean that it's healthy. Green cleaning practices and products, however, are increasingly becoming more focused on effectiveness and human health. This shift is very much consumer-driven. As more states and school districts put green cleaning policies in place that emphasize health, manufacturers are more compelled to respond with products that meet a standard of green that is being defined by health and education advocates in the school community. While there are various state, school district, and industry definitions for green cleaning, the best of them, like the examples you see here, share the same intent for promoting products, policies, and practices that protect human health and the environment while still achieving effective standards for clean. As one of our school stakeholders in Connecticut often says, if it's not healthy, it's not green. Today's featured IAQ experts from the SHIELD Network will give a more detailed description of how schools and school districts can implement cleaning and maintenance practices that improve IAQ in schools and provide improved health outcomes for students and staff. Our first speaker, Mark Bishop, will help provide a better understanding of the fundamentals of green cleaning in schools. Mark Bishop serves as the Vice President of Policy for Healthy Schools Campaign, where he provides strategic leadership in state and federal policy initiatives. Mark has been with HSC since 2002, where he works with a team to support school health in legislative, regulatory, and programmatic levels. Mark co-led a team to establish greencleanschools.org, a comprehensive resource to support schools implementing green cleaning programs, and he actively promotes best practices and policies for healthier and more sustainable school cleaning programs. Please join me in welcoming Mark Bishop.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Real quick, a quick overview of Healthy Schools Campaign. We are a not-for-profit organization, a national organization that's based in Chicago, and we work on the intersection in school health, and environment. And specifically around green cleaning, we've been working on this issue since around 2004, when we were working to implement green cleaning in the Chicago public school systems. And what a lot of people say is if you can do it in Chicago, you can do it anywhere. I'm going to give a brief overview about what is green cleaning, and then we'll get the real technical experts in here. But Healthy Schools Campaign, we talk about green cleaning as cleaning to protect health without harming the environment. And that goes very much in line with what Tracy was saying. And we are very deliberate about that sentence and about the order of the sentence, because cleaning is about protecting health. And the reason why we clean is we want to stop the spread of or reduce the spread of disease in our buildings. But what we want to do with green cleaning is overlay on top of that an additional aspect of not harming our environment. And when we hear people say you can't clean green because you're not going to protect public health, what we say is health is number one priority. And no matter what you do, that is what the focus of any clean program has to be. So why do we care about green cleaning? We break it down into 5 main areas, and you can pick and choose which is a priority for you, your facility, or your community. But this is what we'd like to talk about. First of all, green cleaning is about helping students stay healthy and ready to learn. It's about making sure that we have environments where we are reducing the potential exposures of both potentially toxic chemicals as well as reducing the exposures of infectious diseases to our students. Because if we want our schools to be successful, we need to keep our kids in the classroom and ready to learn. Second, we're talking about protecting the health of custodial staff. Custodians are our front line of our public health champions in our schools, and they are so important to keeping us healthy, equally important, in my opinion, as a school nurse. But these are also the people who are working tirelessly with heavy equipment, swinging mops around and working with chemicals very closely. We need to make sure we're taking steps to ensure their health from an ergonomic standpoint, from a chemical standpoint, and keeping them in environments where they can thrive. 3, increasing the lifespan of our facilities. Green cleaning is also about selecting products and processes that maintain our facilities better, making sure that we are using products that are not going to wear down our surfaces, making sure that we are vacuuming in ways that we are reducing dirt that ultimately would be more quickly wearing down the carpet fibers, because we have huge investments in our school facilities and we want to make sure we're maintaining them properly. 4th, preserving the environment. The cleaning industry as a whole has a large footprint on the environment in doing things that we can do to reduce the transport, the development, the production cycles, and the disposal cycles from the cleaning process is going to help preserve the environment for generations to come. And finally, related to the lifespan of our facilities, is we need to exercise fiscal responsibility. I've never spoken to a true green cleaning facility leader who doesn't say green cleaning helps them save money and they couldn't do what they're doing without a green cleaning program, because ultimately green cleaning is about looking not just at the products, but looking at the processes and the equipment that helps you be more efficient with your labor and be able to do more with less. And one thing I always like to point out is let's just remember that children aren't just little adults and schools aren't just little offices. Let's remember that offices do not have 30 small children stuck in there trying to learn constantly. The needs of these buildings are different, and the needs of the occupants are different. Students have developing immunity systems that are not as robust as adults. We know that students breathe, eat, drink more proportionally than adults. So if they do get something in their body, it's going to impact them more. And finally, we know that students, those 30 little bodies that are in our schools or in our classrooms, they behave differently. They put things in their mouths, they touch things, they share things, they roll around on the ground. These are things that most of you who are listening today probably don't do on a day-to-day basis in your office building, but these are things that we have to be concerned about. So the cleaning and the products that we use when cleaning become even more important and more significant in a school environment. So what we have done is we have developed greencleanschools.org, which is a comprehensive resource about how to clean, where to clean. But where we started the work is looking at the 5 top steps to green cleaning in schools. And there's a lot of relationship between our 5 steps and the framework that EPA put together, very, very similar. I'm just going to walk through the 5 steps, give you an overview, and I'm sure and I know that the following speakers are going to kind of go off on a lot of these in more detail. Number 1 is planning your program. Planning is about assessment, looking at the facility needs, looking at what type of cleaning has to be done, what your surfaces are. It is about looking at prevention strategies and how can we make choices that can actually keep dirt out so we have a reduced cleaning need for our facilities. It's about making sure that you can build a team and create an opportunity to support success of a green cleaning program. Planning a program is one of those early steps. You have to really see what the opportunities are at your school. And every school is going to be a little bit different, but being able to take those early steps, do that assessment, see what your infrastructure looks like and what your current inventories in your cleaning building looks like is going to help you develop this framework for success. Step 2 is looking at selecting green products. Now, a lot of people start with selecting green products. I might argue that selecting green products is the easiest place to start, but it also may not be the most important. And I say that because green cleaning products is only one piece of a program, because you have to look at so many aspects of how you use the products and how you're training your staff and the type of equipment you're bringing into your building. But it is a great way to communicate a green cleaning program by talking about what your purchasing strategies are. And when you do purchase green cleaning products, what we do know is that 90 to 95% of the products that you purchase can be green certified. We look to Green Seal, the UL Eco Logo program, and the EPA Safer Choice program. And if we can identify products that comply with one of these 3 programs, we know that the chemicals and the products that we're bringing into our facilities are going to be safer and better choices down the road. Next is we're looking at the equipment. Today's tools that we can use are different than the tools that our parents use. What we saw 20, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, it has changed, whether it's a vacuuming type equipment, whether it's some of the water-based technology, or whether it's the use of microfiber. We know the equipment that you can bring into your classroom can dramatically reduce the chemical loads in your facilities. It can also dramatically improve the efficiency and the ergonomics for your cleaning workforce. So looking at the equipment products and looking at these long-term purchasing strategies for your capital here is an important component of how you think about your green cleaning program. Step 4 is adopting procedures. We really need to talk about training. You can purchase the latest green cleaning products, you can talk about the latest technologies, but ultimately, if your staff isn't properly trained, it's just not going to matter. I like to share the story of a school that actually switched over to a green chemical product, but there was some faulty equipment and they ended up using a concentrated product directly on the tables. And what they found, they didn't know why, but they found that there was a sudden outbreak of rashes from the students. And it turned out that despite them using a green chemical, the students were being exposed to concentrated forms of this chemical. And so fortunate, this particular school had a procedure in place to inspect and figure out what the problems were. But the reality is that the process and the procedures become as important as what you're using. And being able to create replicable training models is so key to success of a green cleaning program. Step 5, and while I put this as the last step, I would suggest this may be one of the most important ones, but it's about sharing the responsibility. It's about building that team, identifying where the different roles can be for your school community. There is a role for students. Students can make cleaning easier for our facilities by, putting their desks, their chairs up at the end of the day. Teachers have an important role by understanding the role of cleaning and their role in product usage within their classroom. Principals have a role of showing leadership. The facility directors have a role of identifying and understanding purchasing strategies and training. But the reality is everyone has a role, and being able to get people together is going to be key to having a successful program. Part of that sharing the responsibility is making sure that there is communication and recognition for everyone. And speaking about recognition, I would just like to do a quick plug for our efforts with our partnership with American School and University and the Green Cleaning Network. where every year we do the Green Cleaning Award for schools and universities. We highlight some of the best and most innovative schools around the country, both K-12 and universities and colleges, to be able to highlight the great work that's going on. So if you know of a school, or if your school, or if you serve a school that is doing some really innovative green cleaning work, check us out. I believe that's all I have right now. I want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'll be around for questions, and I look forward to learning more from the rest of the speakers. Thank you.
And thank you, Mark. And, I really want to thank you, especially for clarifying the connection between cleaning and, like you said, academic outcomes, that this really does have an impact on the bottom line of academic performance as well as fiscal performance for school districts. And two, putting that custodial staff and the health of students first. I think you're absolutely right. They are some of our frontline public health servants also in our school districts. Our custodial staff have such an important role to play in preserving their own health as well as the health of students in the schools as well. And I got to say, when you talk about that sharing responsibilities and the importance of that step when it comes to establishing any cleaning program, but especially a green cleaning program, it brings back to mind for me the importance of the framework elements that are organized and communicate. And often people aren't sure what that really means for different components of their program. But I think you really spelled that out really importantly here, that being able to share responsibility, making sure everyone who has a role is involved, and being able to communicate that effectively. That's what those two kind of master key drivers really look like for us when it comes to cleaning. And when I look at your definition of green cleaning, it's simple but eloquent. And using that definition that combines health and the environment in cleaning, I think that one day it speeds us towards the day when green cleaning is just called cleaning in schools. So one of the major concerns with cleaning products, green or otherwise, is how effectively are they doing the job? And what really is their job? How do we know when something is clean beyond a visual inspection? And when it comes to cleaning for health, what things really need to be cleaned, and how clean do those things need to be, and how do we know? So these are some of the questions that our next speaker will help us explore. Dr. Richard Shaughnessy serves as the Director of Research and Manager of the Indoor Air Program at the University of Tulsa. Dr. Richard Shaughnessy has established a program that is internationally recognized for its work dedicated to improving the indoor air quality in schools. His extensive research examines the impact of poor indoor air quality on the academic performance of our nation's students, indoor air particulates, air cleaner evaluations, indoor chemistry, floor studies, children's asthma, and housing conditions, and resolution and remediation of bioaerosol-related problems. Someone who has contributed just volumes to our knowledge and understanding of the intersection of cleaning, indoor air, and health and academic performance. It is my pleasure to welcome to the webinar Dr. Richard Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that lead-in. I appreciate the opportunity to address the network today and talk with respect to a small part of the field in terms of the rapidly developing research that's going on right now, addressing exactly what you spoke of there at the introduction in terms of how do we define clean? What tools do we have available for us now? Where is that going ultimately in terms of health? I'll be able to reflect on some other research and some work we're doing as well. We think of the ideal school environment and what we would like to achieve in schools. And clearly, all of these things have impact with respect to the students and their ability to perform, their ability to achieve, and to attend school as well, related to health. So adequate ventilation, and a lot of research related to that, and it does associate with improved test scores. Daylighting is so important to the environment, dry and moisture-free as one of the aspects of the SHIELDS network. We talked about mold and moisture in buildings, which is so important. And then we get to clean and cleanable. Not only do we need to keep schools clean, but there has to be an ability to clean that environment, which is often somewhat of a challenge. Clutter-free, which again goes to clean, and track-off mats. Again, trying to prevent the entry of contaminants into the building before they enter into the space. Our schools as a whole, we think of buildings, and Churchill, I love this quote, first we shape our buildings, then our buildings shape us. And I truly believe that. The buildings that we inhabit and how we design that ultimately will impact our ability to function within those structures and how we perform and how we're able to thrive in those buildings and produce and what. Frank Lloyd Wright, one of the greatest architects of the last centuries. Buildings, too, are children of earth and sun. Any of his structures that you may have seen in the past, just beautiful, beautiful buildings that wonderful in terms of aesthetics, ergonomics, daylighting, incredible structures that we have today. Which then brings us to, what about our schools today? Well, unfortunately, across the board, many schools need quite a bit of work. And schools that sometimes on the level should be almost condemned, we still have students inhabiting those environments, which is most unfortunate. A quote by an author that unknown, but I think it's very important. If you're not outraged, you're really not paying attention to the situation at this point in time. Moving into the cleaning aspect, there's a lot of discussion about maybe we are trying to formulate or move or shift our environments into too clean a space that children, in fact, need exposures early on. And that's important in terms of protecting their health later in life. And we call that the hygiene hypothesis, how clean is too clean and what may be the downside of that. That might be something of concern and clearly is, but is being debated and looked into further with healthcare. But with respect to schools and our typical environments that we have, I mean, we are light years away as a norm in terms of being concerned about too clean an environment with schools. And you add all of these things together, and then let's put into the equation the one component that we have to have in schools are the children. And the children themselves, one child will, over the course of 1 hour, shed 40,000 skin scales per hour. On a yearly basis, that's almost 1 pound of skin scales per child. You have 20 to 30 children in a classroom, and you're upwards of 20 to 30 pounds of skin scales that we have to address right up front. So this is something that definitely goes right along with the schools, but then we add everything into it, and our ability to clean sometimes is very much a challenge. So what do we do? What do we do about odors or problems or things of that nature in schools? Well, unfortunately, instead of addressing the source, which is so important, often we try and cover up. And what you might see in this slide here, over here, we're looking at a plug-in air freshener. The point being is that clearly we're not addressing the source here. Clearly we have a problem still in the space. And this is the idea of what we have in the space or dealing with the elephant in the room. And we do have an elephant in the room with respect to schools, and how do we address that? So I give you the example, if you've got a large dead cow in the corner of the classroom, and it's sitting there in the corner of the classroom, you've got some options with respect to that dead cow. You could shellac it, encapsulate it, and use it maybe as a conversation piece for the classroom. Or you could maybe take the other approach, and let's take a lot of incense and air fresheners and aromatherapy type candles and put it in there. Not such a great idea. Or how about just removing the dead cow from the room? Well, often we opt for the other options as opposed to addressing the source itself, the offensive source. For centuries back, and I'm only going back to 1960 on this quote, but there have been quotes that we can look to that address the inadequacies of schools in terms of the environment. And in the 1960s, John Kenneth Galbraith, a very famous economist and presidential advisor to many presidents, said, what good is a tax cut to provide a few more dollars in our pockets if the air is too dirty to breathe, the streets are unclean, and the schools are so filthy that the young, perhaps wisely, stay away. Here we are in the 1960s, they're talking about that. And over 50, 55 years later, we're still the average public school in the country, roof leaks, wall structures deteriorating, rooms underventilated and overcrowded, and over 40%. And I would say that is somewhat of a low conservative estimate. of public schools in the United States are in very poor condition. So taking the next step, trying to address this more proactively as opposed to reactive, the benefits of a clean environment. What are the outcomes? What are the incentives? If we make an investment, if a school administrator makes an investment in improving their cleaning program, what is the payback? And I think that's very important. Now, we have to be able to justify a payback with respect to that. And to take a step back, we look at clean environments, and we have to understand what are the influences in a school that alter or impact microbiology, what we have on surfaces, and what we pass back and forth from one child to the next. And we have to understand that occupant behavior, facility management, maintenance has a direct impact on the residual contamination in schools. Ventilation is very important as well in terms of what we bring in from outdoors and how we treat that air, and the importance of ventilation as well, adequate ventilation. Resuspension and settled dust is so important in terms of our exposure. When we think of settled dust, it doesn't stay settled. It resuspends back into the air. And we should be very much concerned about that depending upon the type of flooring and the amount of track-in that we bring into schools, and what we have that falls down on the floor on bookshelves is disturbed, gets back into the air, and we breathe that. And that is just chock full of allergens, semi-volatiles, all sorts of contaminants that we don't want the children to be breathing. And then cleaning and cleaning effectiveness is so important. And then going back to what I started with, how do we define clean? And what is the need? Why do we have to be concerned about effective cleaning? What are some of the outcomes? Well, first of all, as Mark already said, he pointed out very clearly, children are going to roll around, do a lot of things in schools and have a lot of contact. Children put their fingers in their mouth every so many minutes and contacts. And then you have to worry about or think about, well, where have those hands been in the last 10, 15 minutes? And what are we passing on from one person to the next, which I think is very important. So if we look at that and then we begin to focus on cleaning and enhanced hygiene in schools, there is limited research today that is beginning to indicate that targeted cleaning and enhanced hygiene of high contact touch points in schools results in reduced illness, reduced sick building syndrome complaints, and reduced absenteeism. So there is literature already out there, that good research that is showing that there is a payback related to enhanced hygiene. The point that I'm trying to move to, it's not often the dust that you see on bookshelves, which is very important. I'm not saying that's trivial, but it's also what you can't see that can impact children in schools. If you're familiar with norovirus, or in other words, a stomach flu, it is the leading cause of gastroenteritis in the United States, responsible up to, just in the U.S., 21 million illnesses, more than 400,000 emergency room visits, mostly children, visits each year. Over 80% of those outbreaks occur from November to April outside in the heating periods within the schools, where children are more packed into the schools and have more contact. And most often, again, they occur in crowded environments such as schools, daycare centers. And yes, maybe if you have not been exposed to a norovirus, jump on a cruise ship, you probably figure it out fairly quickly. With that said, it's not just norovirus. We have flu outbreaks and epidemics and where one child becomes ill and every child then and the teachers as well become ill. And the outcome being that the school is closed. And for every day that school is closed, we have to be concerned in terms of what the school district is losing in terms of federal funds for not having that child in the environment. If we look at what we pass on with our hands, here we have in the first example, after handling raw chicken, what our hands might be looking at before washing the hands. After handling an old dishcloth, not a good idea to go about afterwards and not wash your hands. Using the toilet, third here. And then after a cleaning surface used for meat preparation, where you've been touching that, again, what you carry with you. And the potential here for fecal-related bacteria spread to hands from contact with everyday objects, and then how we pass that on to others as well. Very important. So how is this maybe going to change our behavior in the future? hopefully we don't have too much of this occurring in schools, but even at the same time, what I'm trying to get to is that how do we mix with others in the environment? How much contact do we have? And perhaps some of that may be changing in terms of even how we greet each other in the future. Handshakes, we're passing on germs depending on where that other hand has been. And perhaps maybe that fist bump might be a better choice in the future. It might be more sanitary to look toward. In fact, I thought it was very interesting. Only a month or two ago, a professional baseball team in the U.S., Milwaukee Brewers, actually banned high fives on the field after an outbreak of pink eye. And again, simply recognizing that they were passing on germs one to the next by simply slapping hands and carrying it all through the clubhouse as a function of that. So, which brings us to, if we're looking at cleaning effectiveness and then how it relates to surfaces, traditionally, we understand that visual assessment is kind of that white glove test, if you will, that kind of touching and seeing, okay, do we have any dust here? But research has shown and indicates that visual assessment is not a reliable indicator of surface cleanliness or cleaning efficacy as a whole. And so there are other tools available. We do have the white glove test. That'll tell you something about settled dust, but, that's very subjective. What we're looking at here in the middle, this is an ATP monitor, adenosine triphosphate. Without going into too much detail, it's an indicator of contamination of biological origin. So you can take a swab of the surface very simply within a matter of a minute to 2 minutes and get an indication of how much contamination of biological origin is on that surface. Another tool that's out there that is being used to some extent, limited at this point, is what we call a fluorescent marker. And here, a fluorescent marker is laid down on the surface. That's what you're seeing here. And with that, it's sprayed down. Then later in the day, you come back with a small ultraviolet lamp and you look at that indicator and you say, is it now removed? Which is an indication that somebody tried to clean that surface. So let me talk about those briefly. From our data, we have looked at schools in 5 regions of the U.S., more than 10,000 measurements related to ATP, again, that indicator of contamination of biological origin, high touch points. From that, what we were trying to do and have developed is a baseline data on what is clean in schools. In other words, what is the broad cross-section of contamination that you might expect in schools, and from low to high, and where might a school rank if they're looking at that and want to compare to other schools in terms of how they're performing with respect to cleaning. It's also a good indicator of before cleaning and after cleaning, and maybe tracking how well you're doing in schools. So that, again, this is one tool, simply one tool that could be used. We did our research looking here at classroom desks. We looked at cafeteria tables. We looked at bathroom sink areas and stall doors as well within bathrooms. And along with that, we also used another tool, which was the fluorescent marker. And here's the idea of spraying on the marker and then coming back later in the day and determining, is that marker no longer present or is it still there? And in this instance, it has been removed for all practical purposes. So you would expect under those circumstances that the surface is much cleaner, the hygiene is better, the cleaning program is good. But in conclusion, at least to give you a quick wrap on some of the outcomes of the study, one of the first things I wanted to say is that fluorescent markers might be a good idea as a very simple way of determining whether a surface has been attempted to be cleaned. And by that, I mean somebody came to that surface and they took some sort of cloth to it or something, and they smeared it or removed it or what, but it does not necessarily indicate the cleaning effectiveness because of exactly what I just said. Often old cloths are used, soiled cloths are used, a smearing of the dirt occurs, and in fact, often we've seen with the fluorescent marker itself has been removed. However, the ATP levels actually go up, which means biocontamination levels are going up, which means you're adding something to that. Yet at the same time, they are attempting to clean it. So that goes into effective cleaning processes. And how are those being implemented in schools? Secondly, from our data, we have been able to establish typical ATP ranges of contamination on school surfaces. And these are high contact surfaces. And those are being established based on a lot of the work that we've done and others as well, continuing this. And we published on that, and I'm showing the citations here as well. And the third point is that surface hygiene is very important. And from looking at all the data relating to that to student health, we're finding a preliminary indication that there is an association between that cleaning and surface hygiene and improved student health. And we recently published on that as well, which is shown down here as the third citation. With that, industry has taken all of this, and you have things surfacing like the CLEAN standard, K through 12, which was put out by ISSA, a Worldwide Cleaning Association. And not to promote any one standard, but they've made an attempt to take data like ATP and use it at least as a metric to objectively measure how clean a surface is on high-touch surfaces. And they've established their own regime of what may be acceptable or what may need more cleaning within school environments based on ATP monitors. The standard is non-prescriptive, but ultimately, I look at these standards and I think the important thing to remember is that we have to ultimately reflect on the relevance to health and learning. Which brings us, as I close this up, to when we look back on our data, this is kind of a composite of some of the data we would find across the country. And these are just ATP pre-cleaning, in other words, levels of contamination pre-cleaning related to desks, cafeterias, stall doors, and bathroom sink areas. Now, from looking at this, you might say, well, cafeteria tables and classroom desks are much more contaminated than bathroom stall doors or bathroom sink areas. Well, they do have higher levels of contamination, but ATP doesn't necessarily take into account everything with respect to what's on the surface. So where are those bacteria or organisms coming from on the desk compared to a bathroom stall door? And some excellent, good research that is being developed and further developed as we speak is looking at locations within the classroom, looking at the types of bacteria and the origin of those bacteria. And on desks, for example, we have things that are expected, maybe more human, oral, saliva. On walls and floors, we find more soil-related type bacteria. But on chairs, it's more related to gut types of bacteria and human urinary, skin and what. And this is something that we need more information on. In other words, this slide tells us, yeah, we have more contamination on desks, but maybe on the bathroom stall doors and what. Those are the organisms perhaps that we need to focus on more. So there is some very good research looking toward that. We, in fact, are engaging in looking at schools and homes related to ATP, but we're also looking at DNA sequencing of the microbiology on the surfaces to be able to relate those to ultimately get to the health. And that's what we're doing at this time in a large study, which we're very happy to be a part of. And in closing, the actual cleaning behavior and management is important. And what I'm trying to get across here is that we start with, in schools, a specified cleaning and pest control program. Here's the official policy. Then, often it gets kind of distorted when we have the actual cleaning and pest control program that the facility staff may tweak and use on their own. And then even on the worst case scenario, we have the random cleaning and pest control program by occupants, where you have chemicals and pesticides and what being brought in that may be dangerous. You may be mixing certain types of cleaning products that may very much be a hazard. So this is not what we want to be happening in schools. There need to be a coordinated program. And in closing, as I look at it, my take on this is that we have to be able to relate the building design, operation, and our occupant, that is, influences of what people are doing in this space and how that impacts exposure, and then how that relates to environmental health. These have to be tied together. I think it does us no good to look at cleaning if we don't ultimately get it to the health benefit, and that's exactly what many researchers are currently trying to do. We believe that to be in place. Initial research shows that to be true, and we're trying to flesh that out more. I'd like to acknowledge the U.S. EPA for support on much of our research in the past and programs, and Cleaning Industry Research Institute and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. Thank you, Tracy.
And thank you, Richard. Really appreciate all of your comments and all of the research and work that has gone into making that clear connection between cleaning and health and academic performance, and especially, too, with the way your comments have underscored what we talked about before, the connection between cleaning and maintenance to other important areas of technical competency with indoor air management in schools, especially around that aggressive source control issue. You really emphasize that again in the end. Having a proactive cleaning program can really help school districts in acquiring compliance around a lot of the policies that are put in place around sources, around things like plug-in air fresheners or bringing in outside cleaning products. If you have that proactive and really effective cleaning program in place, then it helps with all of those other areas as well. And I also, want to appreciate the fact that you really help schools identify, outside of the visual test for clean, it's a very personal issue. Everybody has their own kind of standard for what they think clean is. But the more a school or a school district can establish consistently communicated standards for clean, the better off everyone is. And the more, again, compliance and the more support they'll have across the board from all of their faculty, from all of their staff in terms of maintaining and not scuttling the efforts they're putting in place to have a really effective green cleaning program. And we know that lots of schools and school districts across the country are putting that effort towards having that proactive cleaning program and preventative maintenance program that is seeing results, health results, academic results, and fiscal results. Our final speaker today will provide sort of a case study for us on what it looks like when green, clean, and healthy converge in a financially sustainable, comprehensive cleaning and maintenance program. Mike Jones is the Director of Custodial Services at Columbia Public Schools in Missouri. Mike has 30 years of experience in operations management and oversees the custodial department comprised of 38 buildings with over 3.4 million square feet at Columbia Public Schools. Mike launched their Green Initiative in January 2009, utilizing the Missouri Green Clean Guidelines and Specifications for Schools. Columbia Public Schools has won 2 American University Magazine Green Cleaning Awards. In 2010, they won the Best New Program, and in 2011, the Grand Award for School Districts, a really amazing accomplishment. Please join me in welcoming Mike Jones.
Thank you, Tracy, and it's great to be here today. In 2008, we learned Missouri would be developing a possible mandatory law for green cleaning products and programs, and we're using the Illinois mandatory state law as the blueprint. When we started to identify the issues, the passing of the Missouri Green Cleaning Guidelines in 2009 was one of the pieces of the roadmap puzzle that helped us to design our programs. These guidelines adopted directives from the Healthy Schools campaign in the area of shared responsibility and promoting stewardship. Although the Missouri law passed was only voluntary, we accepted the recommended guidelines of DESE and began program changes. It is a board policy that the use of cleaning products and procedures must be in accordance with the recommendations of DESE. As you can see, we had all conventional products and programs. Using the guidelines and education we are assessing helped us greatly during the process. Improving the health issues within our campus facilities was the motivating factor, and finding areas to address these issues was not difficult to do. Making some of the required changes, however, was a challenge in some areas. In 2009, we started making changes, which in turn produced savings in each of the above categories. Total savings from just these changes equaled over $90,000 a year over a period of 3 years. To continue our green program, we utilized the $90,000 in savings in our operating budget to help fund new products and equipment. It is important to properly maintain and track maintenance of your custodial equipment to reduce your overall cost and maintain indoor air quality. Our in-house staff replaces HEPA filters in our protein backpacks and Kayavacs every 6 months and provides PMs on a scheduled basis. All battery-operated equipment is bid only to include maintenance-free batteries. One of the areas which was easy was the recognized cost of 33 plus chemicals we inventoried just to clean. The amount of cleaning chemicals offered to staff was impossible to manage, created confusion of our staff, a waste of financial dollars, and many of the chemicals offered to staff consisted of high MSDS health ratings. Currently, we offer 5 daily cleaning chemicals to custodial staff for cleaning our buildings. Moving towards a double bucket system with microfiber technology allows soil mops to be constantly rinsed, clean solution applied to floor surfaces with better cleaning results. We eliminated the waste of around $14,000 in string mops, experienced a 30% reduction in floor chemical use, and previous savings in our programs paid for this equipment. Before we started using these processes, just like others, we were using mop buckets and string mops to apply finishes to floors. These two methods were introduced to staff, and as a result, there is less product being used, thinner even coats, and allowed us to change our stripping program from 3 to 5 years. Currently, about 40% of our floor surfaces are stripped with chemical-free cleaning pads and machines. It is a well-known fact that negative IAQ issues are generated by 80% of soils which come in the entrances of our facilities. Keeping in tune with our Green and Healthy program, we have invested in high-performance matting systems throughout most of the district. Labor cost and indoor air quality have been affected in a positive manner. We had metal trash cans, rusted and dented throughout our district buildings, could not be properly cleaned, and was a major source of indoor air quality concerns. We had classrooms with 5 small trash cans, large trash cans in classroom spaces, and trash bags were oversized to properly fit existing trash cans. Public bid for new trash cans, liners to properly fit to reduce waste, and reduction in the number of large and small trash cans saved our district over $30,000 per year and over 40,000 liners into our landfills. Our most recent change was the reality you can bring in green products and procedures, but you must have a standardized cleaning process. Process Clean for Healthy Schools has helped us bridge the gap where all of our classroom spaces are cleaned the same way district-wide. This process has simplified our training, raised the bar of consistent cleanliness, and improved staff morale. We are still in the infant stages of this new program, training and retraining, and understand that change is always difficult. Our district administration is 100% in full support of this new program. This is a team effort by the faculty and students at this elementary school where at the end of the day, chairs are stacked, worktops are free of debris, and floors are picked up. This facilitates the sanitization of the worktops and increased performance of custodial staff, as well as overall quality of service. Shared responsibility is supported by our district, but needs to be communicated on a regular basis. We understand our principals and teachers have a role of student achievement, work numerous hours, and sometimes needs to be reminded of shared responsibility to help keep our buildings clean and healthy. Physically removing soils on a daily basis is a hygienic and ergonomic method by increased staff performance and reduced potential contamination to students and staff. We concentrate on our most touched contact surfaces in our primary cleaning and utilize a quad cleaning format to maintain items needing to be cleaned only once per week. The district student allergy prevention and response policy restricts teachers and staff from bringing in cleaning chemicals from home. We provide our cleaning chemicals and blue microfiber rags to teachers upon request at no cost. This is a very difficult policy to monitor as many district staff do not understand issues created bringing into our buildings their normal cleaning products they use at home. This policy is to create an organized system for preventing and responding to allergic reactions and improved IAQ. Monthly newsletters from our facilities and construction services are sent to district staff to inform them on IPM, energy, and IAQ improvements, issues, or updates. This provides teachers and staff necessary information of IAQ, energy savings, access to MSDS sheets or GHS information, and on the importance of indoor air quality, pest management, and energy savings. This is a typical monthly newsletter sent to all staff members by our Facilities, Construction, and Services Department. Our recycling program is a board-approved policy that is student-based to teach them about the importance of saving valuable resources for their future. We recycle paper, plastic number 1 through 7, cardboard, cans, and use outside companies for waste to minimize the effects into our environment. Our professional development program with GCI is a part of our overall success. Understanding why we use the products and practices is paramount to obtaining measurable results. Each year, we continue to maintain our district's silver EHS school certification when our staff takes continuing education courses from the Green Clean Institute. Internally, we hold 8 training sessions throughout the year to train staff on cleaning products and procedures, MSDS sheets, or what's coming up is GHS sheets, new program updates, and understanding the importance of green cleaning, indoor air quality, and the importance of their role as custodians. We have 2 custodial trainers with the role of training new custodians and retraining staff when needed. This coming year, our trainers will complete cleanliness inspections of buildings twice per year, and we will be sending random cleanliness surveys to building staff. Our challenge in our custodial services department will be to continue our path, providing proper training, keeping up with new technologies, and keeping custodians engaged on their role of cleaning for health. This coming year, we'll be working with the City of Columbia to collect food waste for composting and utilizing volunteers from the city to help teach our students and staff the importance of recycling waste. We have been testing engineered water technology and hope to move forward with an engineered water program this coming school year. Our new green cleaning products and programs have kept absenteeism rates low and cleaner schools. I want to thank the EPA and Healthy Schools campaign for allowing me to speak today.
And Mike, we thank you for being a part of our presentation today and bringing a real-life frontline school district perspective to our conversation about cleaning and maintenance. I think, too, when we look at the elements of the framework, often, like I said, it's difficult for people to really get a handle on some of those strategies and what it looks like when it's in action. But you really helped us be able to understand that. I think especially around the ACT key driver, when we talk about, driving action, and often people think that that just means taking action on a particular issue, but it also means helping our occupants to have better actions and behaviors also. And I think that the training element that you stress so much in your program really is critical to helping people be able to act in a more effective manner. And, and the same with when we talk about assess. We're always thinking about how it is we as professionals are assessing the physical environment of the facility, but that assess driver really cuts both ways. And so while we are assessing things, we're also being assessed. Our programs are being assessed by the people in the schools and school districts. So things like that random cleanliness survey is a way that you can invite your occupants, your staff, the folks within your buildings to join in that assessment process and to create some real transparency around what you're doing that drives the kind of support that you talk about at every level, from the top down, administrative support from your high management right down to support from the students in terms of doing things like putting their chairs on the table to help out with the cleaning that's going on there. So really a really impressive, comprehensive program that you had. We've talked about a lot of different issues, a lot of different tools and resources and strategies today. Know that we have a great deal of resources to assist you with being able to put your indoor air quality management program in place that has a comprehensive component dealing with cleaning, and also specific effective cleaning and maintenance resources, many of which you heard about today, and many are also there from other members of our network who also have tools and guidance and support to help you with your effective cleaning and maintenance program. Additionally, our school network partner, the Council for Education Facility Planners International, is making it possible for you to receive 1.5 learning units towards the American Institute of Architects Health, Safety, and Welfare and Sustainable Design Standard. You'll be receiving an email soon with details for acquiring those learning units. They will ask that you complete a course evaluation to let them know how we did with this webinar, and so we can keep continuing to improve as a part of receiving those continuing education credits. And my request to you is that the next step you take will be to fill out the webinar evaluation form that you received from us regarding this webinar. We read every evaluation, and it helps us to better serve you and to support your needs. At the end of the evaluation, please access the personalized certificate of completion and display it as a proud demonstration of your commitment to take action for cleaner, safer, and healthier school indoor environments. I want to thank you for attending this webinar on cleaning and maintenance and IAQ in schools, and thank all of our presenters today. You know, we've talked a lot about different techniques, different tools, different kinds of equipment. I know, Mark, you were talking about the evolution of the kinds of equipment that we have now, and we have an equipment question here. And the question is around a particular piece of equipment. It right here is called the mist. Does it help or hurt the cleaning process? And this is, you know, the kinds of misters that are currently being marketed as cleaners and disinfectors in lieu of actual surface contact cleaning. So I will ask if any of our speakers have experience with this or have anything they want to share about the idea of sort of misting cleaning as opposed to contact cleaning.
This is Mark Bishop. I'm going to say I actually have no experience with a mist product. I will say with all of the work that we've done, one of the most important aspects of cleaning, though, is physical removal. And the actual action of wiping a surface is very key to removing both contaminants and dirt. There may be very specific applications that a mist may be appropriate for product distribution, but that's something that personally I would have to look more into.
Okay, I have a question that is specifically addressed to Richard Shaughnessy. Dr. Shaughnessy, can you speak to the issues surrounding glass fiber particulates in our schools? How do you test for it, effects on health, et cetera?
Okay, well, there are means you can look to settle dust to determine the fiber content. Any certified lab, industrial hygiene type lab, would be able to analyze for glass fibers. So if you were looking at trying to determine what you have in the air, you would basically, I think, one way of getting an indication is looking at the subtle dust. You could actually do air samples as well, but again, you would have to look for something like particulate, especially glass fibers. And again, it's more asbestos type of lab work that would be necessary to collect. You can collect an air sample and have that analyzed as well. And there are standards related to fiber particulate in the air, especially related to asbestos.
So we have another question here about, you know, something that we're seeing more and more commonly, at least in household use, and our going around the schools have seen this happening in schools as well. And the question is around antibacterial wipes. And what is the take that you have on the use of antibacterial wipes and cleaners?
This is Mike Jones. I will say we do allow those in our school districts for the teachers. They use those constantly to wipe doorknobs and classroom surfaces, so it is used and we allow that. The issue with the antibacterial wipes is people don't really read the directions, and there's different kill claims and surfaces. As most people know, you can't sanitize or disinfect a surface without removing the physical soils. So they work and everything, but I think most people think when they wipe any surface, it's automatically cleaned and disinfected, and it's just basically not read and used properly.
Yeah, and I would add, you have to be careful with respect to hand wipes or soaps and what that have any triclosan in it. There is a concern about the use of that and exposure to children. So as a whole, wipes might certainly do have an application, but be certain that, and this goes to what Mark was talking about earlier, and he might want to chime in, but triclosan is one ingredient you want to make sure is not in the mix.
So we have a question from Mike. Mike, they want to know, did you experience any resistance from the teaching staff or the union or from your maintenance staff as you've been putting your spring cleaning program into place?
Actually, we had very, very little resistance whatsoever. Mark Bishop made a comment about the effects of harsh chemicals. We actually had custodians that By the end of the week, they had red rashes all over their arms, and they had to go to the doctor just to get medication to counteract the rashes. So as far as custodial staff went, they really enjoyed the less harsh chemicals. As far as teachers and our building staff, when we first started, we were very upfront with them, and I visited actually each school and did presentations to the board and so forth and so on. And so we were upfront and saying, hey, we're bringing this in, and this is why. And it's to improve indoor air quality and to have cleaner and healthier buildings. There is a little challenge getting your custodians that are, I would say, old school to accept it. And that's when we started looking at whether it is cleaning chemicals or equipment or microfiber or whatever we brought in. We set up test sites at each of our buildings, and we actually had the custodians testing the products for us. And they're the ones that gave us the feedback saying that, yeah, this stuff works or this stuff doesn't work.
So, Mike, while you're kind of talking about that a little bit, we have people are curious about what you seem to find is the biggest challenge in your indoor environmental quality program. Is it sort of dealing with mold? Is it the removal of bacteria? What are you finding to be some of the biggest challenges for you?
The biggest challenge, I think, is you can bring in the chemical and you can do this and you can do that, but training is the biggest challenge that you have to start from the very beginning. Communication and training, actually. Communicating with your staff and everybody in the buildings of what you're trying to accomplish. But you have to be able to train and retrain. I can go out and train a brand new custodian, and we train them for about 2 days. Then you have to go back about a week later and retrain them again. And then you got to turn around every so often, 2-3 months, and keep making sure that they're following that program. Because they resort back to their old habits, or they develop tunnel vision, or they make a decision, well, I like to do it this way better. And so that's probably the biggest challenge, is just within your own custodial department. There is a little bit of a challenge with the teachers and school district as a whole, just because you have turnover in staff, you have teachers retiring, you got teachers coming from school districts who don't have a green cleaning program and who are using traditional cleaning chemicals, who are used to bringing in plug-in air fresheners that aren't allowed in our school district. And so that's just a constant reminder, this is what our program's about.
That was a great comprehensive answer you gave there, because it also, I think, addressed one of the other questions that we had, where folks were asking how it is that you were able to achieve that kind of sort of multi-level buy-in. And I think that you definitely addressed that in the answer there too. And again, kind of drilling down on the importance of training, retraining, staying in communication, communicating, with everyone right along the board. And so I think that you've addressed a number of questions that people have had about the success of your program and how to replicate that. So back to another question about materials. Someone wants to know, what about the use of microfiber cloths as a possible use for wiping and proper cleaning without having to use a product? Lots of talk out there about microfibers. So you guys want to weigh in around that?
This is Mike Jones again. We do use microfiber without cleaning chemical. And that gets to, you can use a damp cloth for removing dust and so forth and so on. If you're cleaning a window glass, you don't always have to spray the window glass to clean it, or a mirror. The microfiber actually does, since it's synthetic, it will grab the soil and hold it. As far as wiping off certain surfaces, yeah, you're cleaning it. Then you get into, boy, are we sanitizing that surface? Are we completely removing the physical soils on that surface? That's where you need the cleaning chemical as that extra, safety factor to make sure that that surface is really properly clean.
Yeah, and Tracy, I completely agree with Mike. I think microfibers are like a staple now in the cleaning industry as a whole, and certainly have a definite application in schools. Depending upon the type of surface you're trying to clean and to what extent, you may need more than the microfiber itself. However, keeping in mind that the cloth itself is going to pick up more dirt than a normal cotton cloth, you also have to be sure that you're changing out the cloth and that you're folding. And many of the microfibers will give you instructions in terms of the cloth. You fold it, you could fold it 4 to 6 different ways and then some to be able to use the cloth on different surfaces so that you aren't smearing the dirt. And in addition, most of these you can launder and use again and again, so they can be reused, and I think they definitely have a good application for schools and should be looked toward.
That's great, Richard. Thank you so much. And Mark, if you had something that you wanted to share?
On the microfiber point, I don't have much to add, other I would say the microfiber is one of the single biggest technological advancements for green cleaning overall. You can do a ton of cleaning with microfiber. And what I agree with the points that were just made, it really depends on what you're trying to clean. And there are absolutely instances that cleaning with just a microfiber cloth make a lot of sense. And that might be in terms of glass cleaning, but the efficacy of additional cleaners and cleaning agents is going to really help make sure that you're providing a healthier and safer surface. And remember, when we talk about green cleaning, it's about protecting public health. So we do not want to take risks at protecting health. I actually want to make one more point about the earlier hand on wipes, because this goes hand in hand back to Richard's comment around microfiber cloths getting dirty and the potential for spreading more germs if you don't clean it off or fold it properly during use. The antimicrobial wipes can be very effective ways of distributing sanitizers or disinfectants in a cleaning program. We do not recommend giving those to teachers for the very point that Mike brought up, that people frequently don't use them properly. If you look at the instructions for most antimicrobial wipes, it will say leave the surface wet for a certain number of time, usually a minute to 5 minutes. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually really follow the instructions. And because of that, you're ended up not protecting health and you're creating exposures. So while they can play an important role of efficiently distributing a product without spreading germs, I would leave those into the hands of professionals.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate you getting a chance to weigh in on both of those issues. And one of the things that we really stress with people, and when we talk about creating especially a financially sustainable program, is that sort of return on investment, being able to identify your value proposition around doing this work. And one of the questions and I would ask all of you from your perspective to kind of weigh in here a little bit is, one of the questions is around measuring the cost benefits, especially of things that they find difficult to put a value on, things that are difficult to measure, like extending the life of flooring by investing in walk-off mats. So if you could just sort of share some of your experience with making the cost-benefit case for some of the things that are recommended and how schools and school districts and champions there might be able to do that.
This is Mike Jones. I'll just start off by saying we buy Anderson Company mats, which is a recycled product, and it is a very expensive mat. But when we buy anything, we buy something that works. We don't really look at the cost. But when you install these, you can tell just walking in the facility that there's less dirt on the floor because it's being trapped in the mat. Our custodians respond that they don't have near as much dirt that they're dust mopping or vacuuming. Their bags don't fill up as much. You can see it on the actual floor surface that your floors, you're not having to burnish to make them shiny as much. That is one thing I almost wish we would have started off first in our district, but it is a cost, and we're still, right now, we're probably 85% with Anderson Company matting in our buildings, and it's just a very expensive thing to do, but it's probably one of the most important and first things you probably should do in a green cleaning program.
Tracy, yeah, I would add to that. I mean, with respect to the benefits, I think Mike just brought it up. You walk into a school and the visuals itself are going to stand out with respect to a clean school. It's more aesthetically pleasing. How does that translate into cost benefits? Well, that is some of the work related to productivity and the ability to work in conducive environments that are better for learning. I think a lot of this also goes back to occupant education, as we've talked about outside products being brought in, candles, incense, air fresheners, and even the cleanability of the classroom and the lack of clutter, trying to reduce that. That education passed on to the occupants, to the teachers, goes so far in terms of trying to improve the environment, which will ultimately impact the child's ability to learn and their health, and which is a lot of research being done. Yet at the same time, in terms of the question which also applied to what about the extinction of certain products being used or the building being more functional in the future, I'm not an expert on life cycle assessment, but I think cleaning certainly impacts the life cycle assessment, the life cycle of the school, certain aspects of it. So that is very important as well.
And I'll add one more point, is that when you look at the three broad categories of the cleaning expenses, you look at the chemical purchases, you look at the capital purchases, and you look at your labor. And there's no question that chemicals are probably going to be 5% of your budget. Capital will probably be 20% of your budget, and the rest is going to be your labor. So your labor is your biggest expense. So if you can look at implementing equipment that is going to increase your ability to clean your building more efficiently, and you can do more with the people that you have work better, you are going to save money. And the reality is a lot of these green cleaning equipment products work more efficiently and allow you to cover greater square footage. So being able to look at what that square footage per labor hour is a really important strategy of containing your cost of your overall budget. And I'm sure Mike has been doing a ton of that type of work.
I'd like to add one more thing in this. We live in Missouri and we have a lot of snow and ice melt gets put down. It gets tracked into your facilities. What is the cost of one teacher slip and fall or a child slip and fall, liability to the district, worker comp, whatever? That basically pays for the matting system in that one building.
Powerful, Mike, absolutely. And I think that everything that the speakers have spoken to here really underscore the importance of the key driver that we have on short and long-term planning. And all too often, we don't look at the end game. We don't look at the long-term impacts and the long-term investments and the long-term payoff. But being able to do that across, like Richard was saying, the life cycle of the building, as Mark was saying, looking at all the components, not just products, but the capital investment that you're making and the labor investment, and looking at it collaboratively in a long-term planning process is really critical. Gentlemen, I'm going to have us end on a question that addresses two of the biggest issues that continue to arise around cleaning, and that is around bleach on contact surfaces and the use of bleach on contact surfaces, and where, if anywhere, does that fit into a healthy and green cleaning program, and then around fragrances and fragrance policies, and what's the stance on being able to have or put in place policies around fragrance. So bleach and fragrance, go for it.
I'll start again. This is Mike Jones. We don't allow bleach in our buildings anymore. It's been removed completely. It's just not something that is good in a building. If anybody wants to look at a student allergy prevention and response policy, they can go to Columbia Public Schools website in Columbia, Missouri, and go under Board of Education, and you can scroll down there and hit board policies, and it's labeled Student Allergy Prevention and Response Policy, and it restricts any kind of fragrance being brought into our school buildings.
Terrific, Mike. And thank you for the reference as well. Others, yes.
This is Mark Bishop. In terms of bleach, it's not necessary. There are better products on the market. The problem with bleach is it's cheap. It's very affordable, but it's not a good cleaner. It doesn't help in the cleaning process, and it's very corrosive to surfaces. And so it can cause unintended consequences, in addition to all the health impacts and the potential exposures of mixing it with other cleaning products that can create caustic gases and in major crises. But it's not necessary. There are a lot of products that are cost effective that are on the marketplace that you don't need to use bleach in our schools. Looking at MSDS sheets, we can go far identifying preferable disinfectants and sanitizers, and probably we can accomplish 80% or so of our broad spectrum disinfectant needs and sanitizing needs with hydrogen peroxide based cleaners. So we can really go a far way with some very inexpensive options that are safer and healthier than bleach. It's just not a necessary tool at this point in the marketplace. As for fragrances, I think, a lot of schools can make the determination for themselves based on what the allergy issues are and sensitivities are within their schools. But going fragrance-free, both from a product usage for the students themselves as well as trying to identify fragrance-free products, a lot of schools are doing that. And that is, what we find is that for the most part, fragrances are not important, but some people have a lot of issues because they want to have better smelling and facilities. And there are some places where you may have really nasty spills, in bathrooms where having a masking agent for a limited period of time actually gives you space until you can do the full capital investment and inspections, where there are some benefits to have some type of masking agents. And in that case, there are best-in-class products that are going to be safer and healthier. But across the board, looking at fragrance-free policies is a very, a reasonable approach that can be done at a school-by-school level.
Tracy, I concur with the other comments. I'll just tell you, bleach is, many of the bleach-type products are actually being replaced the ingredients with peroxide-based, which are less harmful and breaks down more in the environment. So the hazardous aspect of bleach is one thing. At different dilutions, it can be very much a problem for the person putting it on without proper personal protective equipment. It's often, as we all know, often recommended for mold, but it's not going to remove. It may kill to some extent, but you don't remove the mold, you don't address the cause of the mold, and at the same time, you're left with spores still there. They may not be viable, but the allergenicity is still very much a problem. So I would, the EPA and their guidance related to mold remediation and doesn't encourage bleach. And so I think that's an important aspect. As far as the fragrances go, many of these fragrances are chock full of what we call unsaturated hydrocarbons, or another term is terpenes. The point being, terpenes react very easily with ozone. At certain times of the year, you're going to get these indoor reactions, which a lot of people don't understand. You're forming ultrafine particles, and you're forming aldehydes as well. So not only is it a mask, it's that idea of the dead cow in the corner of the classroom. You are dealing with the source, but it also adds one more ingredient to the mix. And as a whole, we don't recommend those types of applications.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. You've been really thorough in your responses. I'd like to thank our participants for the quality of questions that we had. I think especially with the last set of answers that you had around bleach and fragrances, they really do point to the importance of being able to have a comprehensive program that addresses all different areas of mold and moisture remediation, of integrated pest management. Our next 2 webinars coming up in our series are around smart material selection and source control. And a lot of what we heard in those answers, there are strategies and techniques and guidance there that are really complementary to the things that we're suggesting that people do in order to put in comprehensive cleaning and maintenance programs. If we can control what's coming in from the beginning, if we're really paying attention how we manage those things, it makes for a much more effective and comprehensive program in the end. Again, I want to thank all of our speakers today. I really appreciate the time that you've spent, and all of our listeners as well. So the many of you who stayed on through the question and answer. If you did not have an opportunity to have everyone that you wanted to be a part of listening in on this webinar, if there are staff or colleagues that you have that you think could benefit from having heard what you got a chance to hear today, please direct them to the on-demand video portion that will be released within the next couple of weeks. And also, if you've missed webinars in this series before, they are on demand also. So we'll be looking for the link that comes out where you can access all of the previous webinars as well as this one, and future webinars will also be available for on-demand viewing. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This concludes our question and answer portion of the webinar, and we look forward to seeing everyone next month in our conversation around smart material selection for indoor air quality in schools. Thanks, everyone.